Today's recipe is a white cheddar broccoli and sausage pasta. And this came together from just odds and ends that I had around and wanting to use things up. So if you happen to have just a couple of random things, why not throw them in a pasta dish? So giving this a try. First, like all good recipes at my house, I like to start with onions and garlic. And I feel like the onions and garlic will pull a lot of flavor into kind of a cream-based pasta. I always have onions and garlic in my house, but I had this ring sausage that I'd gotten on sale, and I had like a half a pint of half and half, or half a quart, I should say, of half and half, and some leftover broccoli. So really just putting it all together. So here I'm just dicing the onion and the garlic. And then here's that ring sausage I was talking about. And I'm just going to pull this out and slice it up into like little circle rings, bite-sized pieces that you can put into the pasta. You could cut it smaller, but I'm just doing it the quick way, just cutting it into circles. I thought about just using half of the ring, but then I just decided to go all in. I felt like half wasn't quite enough, and all of it was just enough, I thought, when we finally tasted this. The next step is going to be getting a pan over some high heat. I got my pan all heated up, and then I put the oil in it here. So it's on about a medium high on this range right now. You can see it's kind of smoking a little bit. We want it to be heated high so that we can get some browning on the sausage. That's the goal here. So I'm putting all of those ingredients together, the onions, the garlic, and the sausage, giving them a quick stir, and then I'm going to try to get each sausage face down to get a little bit of brownness on them. You don't have to get them all the way browned like you would on a grill or anything. I just think that adds a little bit of flavor to get that caramelization on them. This does take several minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so per side, depending on how well done you want them to be. In the meantime, on a pot of water here I've got going to boil, and I'm using this bag of macaroni I got from Trader Joe's, 99 cents for a pound, can't beat that. So I'm throwing that in, giving it a quick stir, and we're going to let that start cooking while we're waiting for our sausage. So you can see here I'm stirring it. It's been about 5 minutes or so, and I've got a little bit of brownness. You want your pan to be hot so it can brown, but not too hot that you burn the onions and garlic. So here I flipped them over, and about 5 minutes later, I'm coming back to it. I'm going to give it another stir, and now you can see we're starting to get some deeper golden color to it. So this is where I cooked mine to. Then you're going to want to remove this from the stove and just put it aside. I just grabbed a plate right out of my cupboard and scraped it on. We're going to use this same pan for our cream sauce base. So just trying to get out all the bits I possibly can. Whatever's left in there will just flavor the sauce a little bit more, so no big deal. Back on the stove then, I have about 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to get that melting, and we're going to be making a bechamel base. And a bechamel base is just really butter and flour that turns into a paste, and then you add a dairy product. So we're going to be using half and half today. When I make this, I do a half and half ratio between butter and flour. So since we're doing about 2 tablespoons of butter here, I'm also going to be adding 2 tablespoons of flour. Then you're going to stir it all together, and you'll see it kind of forms a paste. It's no longer going to be saucy at all. And that's a good thing, because that's going to allow our sauce to be a thicker sauce, not just a liquidy milk half and half sauce. You let that cook for maybe about a minute just to get some of the rawness out of the flour. You can see here I can drag my spoon through it and it leaves a streak. That's good. Then I'm going to add the half and half. And since I was just winging this, just throwing things together and not really working with the recipe, I put in about 1.5 cups at this point, and then a little bit later I put in about another 1/2 cup. So depending on how thick your paste is and how thin you want your sauce to be, you can always add a little bit more or less. I used a full 2 cups in the end. So even as you just start cooking it and you start stirring in that half and half, you can start to see a trail behind my spoon. That's because the paste is starting to soak into the milk, and that's making it thicker. And I'm just pressing out some of the lumps here. A lot of times I use a whisk for this, but I just didn't want to dirty another utensil, so using a wooden spoon, but a whisk would even be better. You want to make sure your heat is not too high at this point because you do not want to scald your milk in this process. And again, you could see that tail kind of forming behind my spoon. That means it's thickening. Here's me adding just a little bit more of that half and half. And this consistency felt just about right to me. You can always add a little bit more later, and you'll see what I do to correct for thickness of the sauce in a little bit here. Next, it's time to put in our cheese. And I had bought this white sharp cheddar cheese. It was on sale for some reason, just this random cheese. So I bought it thinking, oh, that sounds good. And my kids have a feeling or a theory that white cheddar and regular cheddar are so very different. So I thought maybe if I used white cheddar in here, they would just think it was like an Alfredo. And let me tell you, it worked like a charm. But I truly think this white cheddar tasted way better with the broccoli and the sausage combination because it's a little bit more of a richness to it versus kind of a tang that you get from that Parmesan flavor. So we're giving it a shot. And here in just the last minute or so of cooking my pasta, I'm going to add in the little bit of frozen broccoli I just had hanging out in the bottom of my freezer. And we're really starting to get things coming together now. So we are going to put the sausage and onions and garlic mixture right back into the sauce here. I'm going to give it a stir. I've got my heat off at this point and just the cast iron is keeping it warm. So you'll notice how thick it is. And so for me, I knew even if I put my pasta in this and there was a little bit of wateriness to it, it was still going to be too thick for me. So what I decided to do was to use some of the starchy pasta water to help thin it out. So I just grabbed a little cup and I'm taking maybe about 2 tablespoons at a time and just adding it in and giving it a stir. And I did go back a couple of times and put a little bit more and a little bit more in until I got it just right where I wanted it to be. Keeping in mind that I do know, again, that the broccoli and the pasta will retain a little bit of water because it is a tubular pasta, so I know it will thin out just a little bit more with that after we do so. Last step here is just to season it. It's going to be plenty salty with all that cheese and sausage in there, so all I did was add a little bit of pepper. Everyone can put on a little bit more if they want later, but just to give it a little bit more seasoning. And then we are ready to drain our pasta and put it all together. So here is my drained pasta and broccoli back in the same pot. And then I'm going to take my sauce and sausage mixture and scrape that right in. And then just stirring it together. So I served this to my kids on a weeknight. It was actually pretty fast to make in the kitchen. I had, 2 big pans and 1 spoon that I dirtied, maybe 1 knife and a cutting board, so not a ton of dirtied items. And my kids loved this. We made it twice, actually, within about a month because they liked it so much. And the good news is I had 2 ring sausage and I had 2 bags of cheddar. So we went ahead and made this a couple of times. So I hope you give it a try and you like it and add your own flair to it if you think of something good. Maybe a little red pepper flake or something like that. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.